Hello, hello, hello. We just got done watching 1977's original Suspiria by Argagito, whatever this dude's name is, name on screen now. And it was an experience, a very
A bad experience.
controversial experience. This is, I think, the first review where we're going to have very different opinions on our review score. So go to the time on screen now if you do not want spoilers. And again, this is a review of the 1977 version. We'll be doing a separate review of the 2018 version remake, which also looks good. It looks very good, and I can't wait to watch that as well. So, to get into the review, what did you think of the 77's version's story on its own? Because I know you've seen the remake. And
Correct.
yes.
This version is bad.
Can you elaborate?
I mean, the version we watched was dubbed, or voiced over, and the voiceover was terrible. The changes in sound when the spooky goblin music would come on was really loud, and I found it to be annoying. The acting seemed poor. I did like some of the set design, though.
Yeah, what did you think of the not continuity, like the story overall of like the girl in the story. Um I
The story is fine. The new one, I don't know. I feel as if since I had watched the remake, it kind of spoiled me for this one because I probably would have liked this one's story more. But I feel like the new version that does the story better because it's about them being in this dance studio and wanting to be part of this prestigious dance academy thing, and they really don't do any actual like focus on the dancing, where in the remake they do a lot of dance stuff.
yeah, and that sounds very interesting to me, and like yeah, this movie really does not focus on the dancing. It much more focuses on the relationship between the dancers, but completely abstractly outside of dance, which is kind of odd seeing as that they're at a dance school. I will give you that.
Yeah, well, and then they don't really even develop the relationships between the characters that well. It's like her and one other girl.
Yeah, and
The new one has like there's a trope of them, and they all kind of do stuff together, and they all are involved in things. And then it's like the putting the production together because they're performing a ritual essentially, and it has a lot more cohesion as uh, a an academy, I guess.
yeah, I found. See, okay, I'm gonna be this review of mine obviously is completely different because I've seen the remake. So, for what the movie was, I really, really enjoyed it, and the story, yes, the acting was kind of bad. I mean, like I believe it's an Italian film, and I would have preferred to see an actual Italian version of this with subtitles. I could not find one, so we watched the dub version. And or I should say, couldn't find a dubbed subtitled version after we watched the dub because I would have preferred to watch that. And yeah, the acting seemed fine to bad. Like certain of the actors were definitely better than the others. Like I thought the blind guy was one of the better actors in the film. Um, but yeah, the overall like acting and dubbing was pretty bad. I don't know this film. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. There are certain things in this film that are really really good, and then there are certain other things that are really really bad. It's like there's a huge valley, and yeah, definitely the story for me in this movie is mediocre. Um, I feel like some of the characters are interesting, and I do like the fact that they kind of show witches in a almost a business manner, like not as a horrifying, like constantly, like 90%, 95% of the film, you just see the witches as people not doing witchy things or looking like witches, and even when you see them at the end doing their like ceremony thing, it's kind of businessy, and that might sound weird, but it's not showing them as like horror. It's showing them as individuals, and then of course you do that when you get to the head head witch. You get the creepy a little bit, cheesy '70s horror movie creepy, but still there.
Yeah. Well, I think in that regard, the way the the coven works is they're kind of all the people that we've seen are like underlings to the main witch. I don't know what they're witches in the sense of they have abilities. They have to get their power from the main witch.
Mm-hmm.
So they wouldn't necessarily have to portray the stereotypical witch-esque aspects because there's only one actual witch. They're just practitioners under her.
The followers of what said witch.
Yeah, and then they get like a power boost and when they do sacrifices to her or whatever. Now they can access some mysticism, but the actual witch is. It makes sense that they would be the business front because they're not actually they're witches in quotations, but they're not mystical beings like the other witch was, the old like crazy looking one.
Yeah, they're not full blown witches yet. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, yeah, they're kind of like servants to that old one.
So does that function very similar, the same way, basically in the remake, or are they more independent?
Yes, it does, but it's done in a different way because the main witch is more involved. Like this one is like, oh, I'm creepy and I breathe weird. And oh, I can go invisible. Even though she has all this witch power, she just goes invisible and brings a zombie. Like I don't know. I don't feel like even the witch was portrayed to be that cool. Which
Yeah,
is probably a critique for me because it's like the 70s era for film I don't love.
yeah, I feel, which is funny because I would actually generally agree with that, but I would say this is one of the better '70s movies out of a lot of them I've seen because there are quite a few bad ones. My recommendation at the end is going to be a different '70s movie. Actually, we didn't discuss what movie this reminds you of, but we'll get there, I guess, when we get there. Um, but yeah, I don't really have anything else to add to the story because I feel like it's pretty I won't say self-explanatory, but it's fine.
Well, I mean, it's a young girl moves away, joins a dance studio to pursue her dream of being in professional dance. Bad things happen to her. There's some warning signs that she kind of blatantly ignores because woman moment. Uh, Creepy stuff starts to happen. Witches execute people who are in their way. She kills Big Bad Witch at the end. She runs away with a weird grin on her
Smile.
face
She's like
as the burning bill burns.
an odd grimace.
Yeah, it's a really strange face she makes at the end, but it doesn't really it fits the rest of the film being odd. I think yeah.
So yeah, I don't have anything else to add to the story. That's a very good, quick summary. I think the story is just sort of there, and it kind of moves along the plot or whatever, moves along the movie, but it's not really a major point. And we've already discussed the acting. The acting is,
Isn't that sad though that the movie's plot doesn't matter?
I mean, like that's honestly a lot of horror movies, though. I mean, like I can't.
Yeah, but then some of them will freak you out or they have some kind of aspect of like psychological message like the ritual that we just did. If the plot was kind of generic as like, oh, we're going in the forest, there's a creepy monster, and then but it messed with you. This doesn't ever mess with you.
True, but it does do, at least again for me, it does the other things we're getting to, which is the music and cinematography are above average for the '70s, if not amazing. Like I don't understand it. Like the color paletting for this movie, I want to see this movie again, actually on a giant like 4K screen. And I actually looked up who makes. I think Arrow makes a really nice version of this movie. I'm kind of tempted to buy it,
Save your money.
but I want to buy it. Well, I don't know. We'll see. Um,
Buy the new one.
I mean, like, well, yeah, I'm sure I'm gonna like the new one as well. I'm sure I am. But yeah, I loved the colorscaping in this film. I adored it, and yeah, some of the shots was okay. Another thing that's interesting is the cinematography ranges from god tier to horrible. which is fascinating. Like to me, even if the movie was shot better all the time, like it was consistently better, it would be less interesting of a film because the person who shot the film clearly had talent and just ignored their talent for, let's say, 25 to 50% of the shots, but then the other 50% were like based. So it was super weird. And that kind of interest that intrigues me.
A
Like,
happy little accident.
yeah, like
It
okay.
it did have some cool shots, I'll give you that, but it also had disturbingly bad shots. Not necessarily bad shots, but scenes that were bad. Like scene building was either decent or very bad.
Yeah, like there's a whole scene where she goes and talks to a professor of psychiatry or something, I don't remember. And it
Yeah, you're right.
basically is 90% of all the plot details in the entire film delivered in a 3 to 5 minute segment that's shot so bad.
Exposition, exposition, exposition.
And it's like, oh, this is all the exposition for the entire film.
They're
And
like,
yeah,
they're like, hey, we know we didn't really tell you anything about what's going on. We didn't really progress the story in the last 40 minutes, so we're going to do it all right here.
right here, right now, yes.
Strap your butts to your chair because you're about to experience something interesting or
Not.
story moving. Yeah.
And,
So,
yeah, and so I guess I'm deducting and giving points for its inconsistency because it's inconsistently good, if that makes any sense.
you're more
Um,
generous than I am.
and then so the cinematography is interesting, and then the color palette is. I would love to see a film history of how many films this inspired are better films because of its really interesting color paletting. So in the process of making this review, I had to collect a bunch of images for the slideshow going on behind it, behind the clip art or whatever, and seeing some of the still images from this movie so much better than actually watching it. I'm like, oh wow, that is actually an incredibly pretty scene. There's such an emphasis on the color red throughout the entire movie, and it's actually quite. I love that. I love that so much. I thought it was super cool. And so yeah, that to me it gets bonus points just for being interesting and creative for some of the shots. Like think about the scene where they all have to sleep in the auditorium. That whole
Yeah, the lighting is really cool there.
and I think there's a letterbox review that's like acting $500, sound design $500, dub work $25, lighting 12 million. It's like yeah, the lighting in this movie is awesome. So yeah, that's I'm giving it definitely more stars because of that.
Want to know an interesting tidbit as why red's probably so prominent in there?
Yes, tell me, King.
Well, in witchcraft and or Satanism, the color red is very important because it's the color of blood.
It's like oh, it's everywhere. Oh, I also.
So
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
that's pretty much it.
Well, I really liked the fact that they included a thing with the bloodshot irises. I thought that was really cool because I think I remember reading somewhere that like witches are supposed to have they like when they perform witchcraft or something they get bloodshot irises. This is actually in there's a couple scenes in Harry Potter where they even have this, and I think that's interesting and cool. I like that, and it's
Yeah,
usually in like one eye. And so there was like a couple scenes where you could have guessed that because the like headmistress or the other lady had the eyes like that. And I think they've had
I didn't pick up on that. That's a really good point.
and I'm like, oh, that's super cool. I like that.
Yeah, that is cool. Now that you mention that, I can remember it, but I didn't really put it together at the time.
So yeah, I feel like there's just a couple like little tidbits that I really enjoyed, but it's kind of a struggle because a lot of your criticisms are completely legitimate. It's just my emotion is is strong. Like I really pick up on, as I think you've noticed with some of our other reviews, cinematography and music and sound design are so much more important to me than story in film.
I'm kind of on the opposite spectrum. Like it could have bad music and the cinematography could be like CGI, and if the story's cool and it looks cool, I'll be like, yo. Which is probably why we make a good team.
We have differences in the things we like, so it's like, bro.
And you gotta talk about the The goblin.
Oh my god, dude! I forgot about that already, dude. The music. If you were there watching it, all you would have heard is from me is wow, this shot's kind of horrible, or wow, this shot is kind of great, and then oh my god, the music's back, bro, the music's back.
You're like, guys, something cool's gonna happen. The goblins are back.
The goblin music. Yeah, I love the soundtrack.
Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum of that, I found that to be really annoying for a couple reasons. One, it was obnoxiously significantly louder than the rest of the film,
Agreed.
which they probably did on purpose, but I think that it was too much of a difference in character audio and then background music. The next thing, the reason that I didn't really like that, like if they did it like one or two times, it would have been okay. But for me, as this is a horror film, every time something important in the story or the movie was going to happen, you had this music come like from the background and then come really loud and hit you, and it kind of like takes the power away from like the suspense of an upcoming scene, because you're like, oh, this creepy music's back, something's going to happen, I got to pay attention now. And I'd rather them just kind of hit me with whatever's coming organically instead of like prepping me for it.
And I would agree. But what's interesting is I think we discussed this a little bit. Is most horror movies have music, they're just nowhere near as loud or abrasive as this film, so you don't even notice them really in the buildup of tension. Where this one is like bad editing, so it's like here's instead of like slowly building into a thing, it's like burr, 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 and then 5 minutes later, then you actually get the like visual equivalent of the sound based jump scare. And yeah, it's I don't know, it's I really like the music, but that criticism is also like completely justified because it does kind of take away from I kind of in certain ways I felt like it added on to, but it also really diminished any spookiness because yeah, you knew what was coming.
I would rather listen to Michael Bay's.
Like and for a lot of so they did that at the beginning, right, with the lady in the window, and she's like, I'm just gonna stare at this window and there's creepy eyes. To me, like the music was very present, and that's where obviously we first heard that. It didn't matter as much because what you were seeing was, for me actually, I was quite disturbed by the multiple stabbings and the heart and the hanging were quite disturbing images. So the music almost served as a opposite to the violence, and I thought that was interesting because I don't like gore. I talked about that a couple times. If a movie does gore and it does it well, and the story and everything else is good, I will tolerate it. But if it's a bad movie and it has just gore for certain people like gore, I don't really fully understand that. That yeah, I just will tune out. So I felt like I don't know. I liked the presentation of the music in the contrast with the violence. It spoke to me in a little bit different way than horror movies with gore generally do. Can't really explain it more than that because it's weird.
Yeah. And see, I would fall on the other end of the spectrum where I'm like, why would you want to take away from the scene that has power to it? Because it's something that's dramatic, and then you just put this goofy sound loop behind it.
But the goblins. But the goblins.
Goblins.
But the
I would have
goblins.
liked it, honestly, if they would have done. They could have had all those musical blundery, transitiony things in there. And if they would have showed me the goblins at some point performing it, I would have been like, yo, all right. I was honestly looking for the goblins because I've heard people talk about them. Like, yo, there's goblins in here.
What?
There's got goblin music because it's like a prominent thing that they're in the beginning. It's like the music is done by the goblins.
The goblins is a band.
Is that what they're referencing?
Yeah. I'm
I was
like
looking for legit
1000%
goblins.
that's a band. Hold on.
I wanted legit goblins, bro.
I'm like, yeah, the goblins is a band.
I wanted real goblins. I wanted spooky witch
It's
goblins.
like now I'm questioning everything. I'm gonna have. Okay, I'm gonna look. I'm gonna do some research later because I thought that was just the name of a band.
I mean, maybe?
Actually, hold up there.
I don't see that listed anywhere. Would that be under their crew?
Yeah, Goblin is an Italian progressive rock band known for their soundtrack work.
Why is that not in their crew or cast?
If you go down to crew and go to composer, it's there. This is Goblin.
Oh, goblin. Well, I wanted real goblins.
Goblin. Your Honor, my client said he was going into Goblin mode. Oh, dude, they did Zombie? I freaking love that album. I don't even know what. I think that's the soundtrack for. Hold on. That's the soundtrack for Night of the Dawn of the Dead. I don't even like Dawn of the Dead, but I like the soundtrack for Dawn of the Dead.
Like this music, though.
I had
Well,
no.
now I'm even more disappointed because it wasn't actual goblins.
I'm like, bro, I wanted the goblins. I'm actually gonna watch. I'm gonna listen to the entirety of the Suspiria soundtrack now because it's on Spotify. This makes me happy.
So it's like one song.
It is one. It is 22 songs.
Oh.
Huh. Intriguing. It's the 40th anniversary of the original motion track soundtrack from 2007. Okay. Anyway, enough rambling. So, it's that. Not time for reviews. Does this film remind you of any other films, or does it inspire you to other films?
Yeah, the new one.
6-8 here just hits you with the 2018 Suspiria. Okay.
Watch that one. That one's better.
Watch. I would say watch both
Skip
of
this
them.
one.
No.
Skip this one.
Watch this one and then watch the other one. No, you gotta do the history, bro. You gotta watch them both. You gotta watch them both. And
I guess.
And like you have, it's literally free on Tubi. You can just go on Tubi and watch it, and it's like an hour and a half of your time. And if you don't like it, well, then you can say you wrote it down in Letterboxd and watched it, and be gloating about watching more movies than other people. This is a win-win. You can be like, wow, this movie's horrible, 1 star, and then watch the new one.
You heard it right here from 6.5. It's 1 star.
I don't know. So my recommended film, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, I suppose, and I think it came out in 1970 or 1969, is the unofficial sequel to Valley of the Dolls, Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. Don't ask me how I got to this, but it gives me some sort of the same vibes with like girls going to go do their profession. Now, difference obviously is in Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, the women also succumb to riches or whatever and end up dying. Spoilers. But I really like Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. I really liked it quite a bit, and oddly enough, not that this is like relevant at all, but I'm pretty sure when it first came out, it was rated like X, which makes it very unique because like freaking no movie gets that rating ever. Of course, it came out in the 60s. Anyway, I'm rambling. So that time again. That time
gives movie recommendation. Spoils movie.
Yeah. Also, that movie had Robert Ebert as a writer, which he didn't write a whole lot. When he did, his writing was kind of bad, even though he was so genius. Like, the guy's an amazing movie writer, review writer, and he writes his movies that he wrote are very meh in my experience so far. But anyway, it's that time again, King. What score shall we dispose upon this film?
I mean, I'm giving it a generous 2. It might even go down, but it gets a 2 for now because I have things that I like less that are rated at around a 2. So it gets a 2.
He has spoken. 6-8 has given it a 2.
It has so been decreed.
So when we started recording this, I was going to give it a 3, just because it's so much of a roller coaster of quality. However, I've talked myself into giving it a 3.5. So I'm going to give it a 3.5. enjoyed this movie more than I should. It's kind of bad, but I really like it. That kind of bad, but I would watch it again. That's my whole summary of the film, and definitely, yeah, that's three and a half. That's the score. I might change it back to a three. We're going back and forth, but I think 3.5 is where it's gonna stay. I think. Yeah, I understand. It is kind of disgusting. So, thank you very much for watching. Please give us your movie recommendations down below in the comments. Tell us what you like, what you dislike about these videos, and the format. Thank you very much for watching. Please consider dropping a like and subscribing down below in the bio section. And have a lovely day.
Bye.